What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up? What up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What's up, Rebels? Welcome back to Rebel Radio, the weekly show where I bring you the rebels who are shaping our culture. Today is our 6-year anniversary. 6 years we've been doing this, which sounds crazy to say, but I'm excited to share this one with you. My guest today is Chad Cisneros. He's one half of the duo Tritonal. They are, if you're not familiar, DJs, producers. They have their own record label, radio show. They created a music production course teaching their techniques to aspiring producers. These guys are at the top of the game in trance and house music, and have a new project that we're talking about today, a new album called Residency, which is an hour-long piece of meditation music. We get into quite a bit about their spiritual journey and self-development and how that's impacted their music and what they, decided to share with fans. We also talk about productivity and process, and these guys have produced over 200 songs together over about 15 years, which is an incredible amount of work that they're putting out. And so we talk about how they do that and what it means to them. And we talk about this meditation project and how, it's a departure from their traditional sound and how that impacts the creativity they bring to other projects. So some great lessons, great stories. Chad's got a lot of energy. He's outside at his home in Texas, and you can hear some of a little bit of the nature around him. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's go. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate you making time to talk. I'm been checking out the new album, and excited to kind of talk about how you got to this point and what you guys are doing now and all that. So, I always like to start at the very beginning, if you don't mind. Do you remember the first record you ever bought for yourself?
Yeah, I think it was a Chemical Brothers. If you're talking about vinyl, I think it was a Chemical Brothers. If you're talking about actual music, I think it was Thriller.
Okay.
By Michael. Yeah, I think it was Thriller, man.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it was, but it wasn't a CD. It was still on tape. Because I was born in the early 80s, 1980.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, that was probably a lot of people's first record.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, it's crazy to think about just, how, big a record like that. Like, I don't think we have that anymore, where this one record defines, an entire moment all over the world.
Because information and access to the arts and different creative things wasn't available. So some of it was the fact that stuff was really, really good and really, really innovative. And some of it was the fact that there just wasn't that much stuff either.
Of course. Yeah, definitely. And then how'd you get introduced to dance music and raving?
Because I was a little crazy kid. And when I was 14, 15 years old, we wanted to explore psychedelics, and we were really young for that, and we wanted to explore just the rave culture, and so for me back then, it was as much about the unity and the parties and the underground aspect of it that was as much of a culture as anything. Like the DJs back in the days used to have to get white label copies sent to them from like secret pressings and stuff to have the newest vinyl in order to have the dopest mix at the events, and you never knew what that record was again. Like there was no way to ever find it. If you wanted to hear that music, if you wanted to hear Paul Oakenfold at the Oslo, you had to go and dig to get those mixes, man. And so some of the fact that there was a restriction to the amount of stuff, alluding back to the Michael Jackson album, is also the fact that now everything's everywhere. And although that's great, it also dilutes like the really, really good stuff. So I was going to parties and was, music and drugs and psychedelics and was as much escapism back then as it was elation and bliss and a whole establishing of a new paradigm or model of who I was in the world and what it meant to be a human being.
Sure.
I think, it was an early cracking of that, as psychedelics can do, or meditation can do, or yoga can do, or heavy breathing can do, like pranayama or Wim Hof breathing. I mean, there's all kinds of traditions that can bring you into the now. But that early period of my life, 16, 17 years old, when I was just beginning to experience psychedelics for the first time, those were some of the best experiences of my life, because I was able to just come out of the really dense, convoluted, distorted thought models I had and paradigms I had of the world, and just kind of see everything afresh or anew again for the first time. And, unfortunately, I was chasing that freedom or that inner bliss so much because I had so much pain and suffering inside that led to heavier narcotics. And those heavier narcotics were absolutely destructive in the most severe way, and almost killed me, and have killed a lot of people that I know. And so, I'm 15 years now sober from those, from the heavy narcotics, namely cocaine and heroin and barbiturates. But I'll never forget the paradigm shifting qualities and therapeutic qualities that I had on those psychedelic experiences, because they were and are vastly, vastly different things.
Yeah.
And, fast forward to today, I'm still integrating and coming to realize through sadhana or spiritual practices what those experiences were about, what they actually mean, and like who I am beyond just the most surface level, superficial vibratory plane of what I'd call me, which is my body or my spacesuit, my thought complexes, my psycho DNA spacesuit, right? And all of the DNA predispositions that it has. That's the most surface level of me. And that's what, before psychedelics, all I thought I was. I thought that was the totality of what I was. And because that was the totality of what I was cut off, always needy, constantly in fear, and selfish as fuck. Because it's all about me, because of ultimately I'm going to be annihilated. I might as well get what I can take now. But when you begin to tap into that deeper sense of me, or that deeper sense of self, or that you begin to transcend that superficial surface layer and actually experience yourself as one with, or a part of, or a cohesiveness with the totality of existence. And that experience, that transcendent experience, is so freeing and liberating, because for the first time you realize that death is just another moment. It's just another transition. It's just another flowering on a continuum of an ever flowing, ever changing, ever blissful thing we can call consciousness. You can call it Brahma. You can call it Ishvara. You can call it God. You can call it whatever you want. But the reality is that you can find that sober and absolutely continue to dive deep through that in meditation, which is why we wanted to write this album. Because I think before COVID hit, Dave and I were at a place in our career where we were like, man, we've done all the things that are you need to do to have a successful touring career and in a dance music industry, and that we're writing credible, authentic, consistent music now for a better part of 14, 15 years, right? And this album was a time for us to just say, if we were to just stop making music, what is the thing we would want to do before we did that? And what would we want to actually put down for ourselves and people that we're close to, and what would we want to leave on the planet in order to just kind of make it a better place?
Yeah.
Not because it's going to generate any amount of streams, or you need a single, or you got to have some radio.
Sure. Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So sorry to ramble, but yeah.
No, this is great stuff. There's a lot to unpack there. And I love you taking me through that journey. Well, let me start here. Was there a moment like, so you said, this new album came out of a thinking about what's our legacy, right? Beyond.
Yeah. What do we want to say? What do we want to say to our fans beyond just the club tracks?
So
is there something we can give them that will be a technology that will actually enhance their lives and potentially even be used as a technology that they can use in inner stillness in order to extricate themselves from the false identification with the small little me that says, this is all I am. This is my one shot. Get it while you can. Little selfish me. And
so
can they
go ahead? What led you to that conversation? Where was the moment where you guys decided to sit down and say, okay, instead of just writing another album like the last one, we want to have a different sort of discussion?
Well, because Dave and I came out of the trance, we originated in trance.
Right.
And we were highly successful pretty quickly in that genre.
Mm-hmm.
I think our first album had like 6 trance #1 Beatport singles on it or something, right?
Yep.
And look, man, as success rolled through the world, because dance music was a planetary phenomena the last, I would say, 8 to 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And stylistically, everything shifted from rock and rap in terms of like culture to dance culture. And as we got swept up in that wave, we began to, I think, operate in the later stages under more and more and more of a delusory paradigm or a really false paradigm. And that's been a real life lesson. And for us, that was the paradigm that, and you don't consciously say this to yourself ever in the journey of writing music, touring on all that, but like slowly, but underlying waking consciousness, you're slowly always choosing this paradigm that says more is better, always. And so there's never a big enough hit. We always need to go bigger. And every time we play a sold out show, next time it needs to be in a bigger room, in a bigger theater, more nights.
Of course.
And the Vegas residencies got bigger and bigger, and the formulaic methodology to writing a quote unquote hit got more and more crystallized. And Dave and I began to lose ourselves artistically in that false paradigm or in that false model. And because initially, when it was just about, the early stages of Tritonal, we really wanted to make you feel a certain way. And slowly over time, we got better and better and better at engineering it, mastering it, producing it, making a record really hit, right? Like really, really fucking hit. And we became better and better engineers. And we also loved a lot of the sort of more mainstream stuff that was coming out back in 2012, 13, 14, where Zed was coming up. There was Skrillex. There was Swedish House Mafia. There was a lot of people that were doing sort of a more big room, main stage, ultra EDC main stage level sounding stuff. And we loved it. And so we jumped on that, and bigger is better became sort of the motto. And, about 3 years ago, I guess 2.5 years ago, we just talked about not being as happy making music anymore, because it was always about trying to get to some end goal that everybody said would make us happy, but there was no end goal. There was no point you could arrive at where it was enough. There was no amount of streams. There was no amount, like it was always, you're only as good as your last record kind of bullshit mentality, I think. And we just had a waking up where we were like, we're absolutely operating unconsciously as artists. And if we want to have our music and our careers parallel what we're doing in our marriages and in our adult lives and in our spiritual lives and in our yoga and meditation and working out and eating healthy, if we want our music to parallel that, then we need to make some like underlying conscious changes about how we're approaching music. And I think that means getting back to the things that we always loved, that were less commercial and more underground, but they were what did it for us in terms of really turning us on to dance music. And it was longer tracks. It was more repetitive rhythms. It was things that are less catchy and less hooky and less cotton candy in 2.5 fucking minutes and it's over. right? Like it's more about something that it actually takes you on beyond the thinking mind, and it takes time in order to work its way through you. And so in order for it to do that, you got to make tracks that are like, they're not 3.5 minutes for Spotify's main playlist. Like they're not going on radio, and they're not about that. They're never were supposed to, and they're probably not going to get hundreds of millions of streams, and they're also not supposed to. And you have to, at some point as an art, we don't have to, but we have as artists decided to honor our role in what we think our role is in the dance industry. And that's to uplift and to raise the consciousness of all beings. And I just don't know that there's a lot of other DJs that are that aware yet, and also willing to use their brand and their profile to that aim. And I just got to a place where I was like, I'm sober. I'm accomplishing everything that I want to accomplish. I have a beautiful family. Why am I still so irritable, restless, and discontent? And why am I still suffering so much? Right?
That's great.
And that's because I'm not parallel internally. I'm saying that I believe in one thing, yet externally, in order to make money, I'm living by a different set of values. And although they are close, they're sortily morphized, right? They're subtly like not the same. So
if I hear what you're saying, the sound, it's not that the sound necessarily had to change. It's more that that's the sound. You were making the sound because you wanted to be successful, not because it was coming.
Both. It's not an either or proposition. I think a lot of things in life, they're all entangled. And so there's an entanglement of, we've enjoyed most of the records that we've worked on. We just realize now, looking back, hindsight's 2020, that a lot of times we were creating those out of a formula that we thought would work. Doesn't mean that we weren't enjoying the process or being creative or trying to make it hot or trying to come up with the tightest thing we could. We were, but like, let's back all the way up to the why. And now ask ourselves, A, why are we making this song? B, what do we want to say? And C, does it matter? Does it impact anybody in a meaningful way? And if not, why? What are we doing this? And why are we trying to make music? And who are we? And I think that I don't know that a lot of people are willing to just dead themselves down and quiet themselves up long enough to close their eyes and follow their breath until they realize those answers. Because those answers are tough fucking questions to wrestle with, man.
Absolutely. I mean, these are the big questions of our life, right?
Yeah.
So did you both come to that simultaneously, or was there a
I think this is more of there's a wasp, he's tracking me down. He was looking to sport, bro. If I put the phone down, it's because I got to go into fucking karate mode. All right.
No worries.
Dave is on his own spiritual journey for sure, but Dave, hasn't had, I don't think, the intensity of the transformation that I've been undergoing the last few years, and that's because I've just really dove into the discipline, and especially during COVID, I pretty much every day did two or more hours a day of sitting and meditation, and really dove deep into trying to absolutely experience that and verifiably get there over and over and again. And I can say without question, unequivocally, I've changed. And I think that as a father and as somebody who is in front of thousands of kids playing live music and at parties that are huge, awesome events, that we have the opportunity to bring just a slightly different tone, right? And it's subtle, and it's not in your face, and it's not preachy, and it's not telling you that you need to believe in anything or adhere to any rules or do anything different. It's just sending out love from a place of stillness, understanding that inherently we're absolutely all connected. And I think that just that in and of itself is so subtle and just so powerful if you really wake up to it.
Yeah. So tell me about the musical side of that. Once you made that decision that this is the record we want to make, right? And now you're journeying into sound genres that, are different from what you're used to making. So what was the process for then saying, okay, this is the kind of record we're going to make. How do we make the record we want to make?
Yeah, well, immediately. I mean, we were already talking to, we've done these kind of records in the past. So it wasn't like we've not taken our stab at a sort of John Hopkins, Nils Fromm, Brian Eno, BT kind of a song. We have
Sure.
a few times. And we've often worked with Nick Sabicki, who's on this record and who was my, professor at the University of Texas. And we've stayed friends and in close contact and worked on numerous projects. I just knew that we were going to want some real raw strings. And I knew that immediately Nick's skills when it comes to automating expression that sounds realistic, like real scores on compositions, because he is not only is a composer, but he writes code and he's a professor and he scores movies. So he does. So I knew that we would be able to get some really raw strings. So we included Nick early on that. And we all sort of had a vibe that we wanted to write an hour-long piece of music that was just one piece of music. And I know it's tracked and I know there's different names on there and all that came later, but really this was about making a 60-minute song or idea, not about a bunch of individual tracks. And that we have never approached writing an album like that. And we've also never approached writing an album all in one freaking project file as one continuous, session. And Logic
That sounds
Pro.
scary.
Oh yeah. We've gone 8-9 minutes, but we've crashed so many. So we were constantly having to bounce in place and reorganize and refolder and resystemize and constantly there was as much time organizing and like trying to crack the code of how to arrange and how to keep recycling and that was half the battle. But once we got the layout down, we really the music just kind of flew out. And I know that's obviously it's cliche and and I get that. And I try not to do, because I hate that in interviews when you have a cliche answer, but it's just the truth. So whether it's cliche or not, I don't care. Right. And so it literally did flow out. And it would come in big chunks. We'd do 15, 20 minutes at a time. And there were 4, 5, 6 big chunks. And then the rest was really just honing in on details on those compositionary chunks, because it was really written with 2 themes. That's it. It's the first theme that you hear about, first couple minutes in, that first big piano theme. And then one other theme, an A and a B theme. And those themes rotate throughout different key signatures and throughout different meters and throughout different tempos over the course of an hour. But it's really just a recapitulation of these core 2 central ideas that, unless you're really an adept, music theory wise, or you've got a really good ear, you probably won't know, because the tempo changes and the key changes kind of keep the listener thrown off. But it's enough of a subconscious connection that if you're really paying attention, it makes sense. And so that was the idea. That's it. To make a record that would allow me to potentially have, or allow someone else to have the experiences I was having at the time by using this sort of technology. And I love drones and I love things that are long evolving and take time to get there and really are subtle and yet interesting, yet not in your face. And you have to be aware in order to appreciate those things. And I do. And I think it took me a long time to come back to sort of my inner child lovings and really honor that as an artist. I think any artist you need to have some success. You need to be able to tour. You need to be able to then cultivate your music that you're making in the studio to really work live at your shows, so that you can provide the experience that you want to have at your shows. And then at some point, you probably have the experience that you've been doing things in order leaning towards success, sometimes more than the art. And then you have a reawakening. And then after the reawakening, you have the opportunity, if you go through all these cycles, to make the best art of your life. Right. And I think that when I think about bands that are doing this, like I think Head Full of Dreams by Coldplay, I just look at the arc of their career and I think those guys have had the same manager, the same road team, the same crew. They have played Super Bowls and done they've done everything, and they just keep crystallizing their message and their relationship and it's just amazing to see an act like that. Yeah. That's a real band continue to like have something to say, actually say it, and provide an experience where people can actually change for the better and feel better about living their life and actually go into the world and be happier people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Thinking about that, you know, what was the conversation with your team, right? Because you have a team whose job it is to kind of like
look out for you.
Well, right, but you know, in a large part, it's what you were talking about before. It's the team's job is to make things bigger and better and to make more money and reach more people and all that, right? So tell me about the conversations with, you know, management, agents, you know, whoever.
Man, I was going so deep and so heavy into this revolutionary undergoing change of who I was and what I thought that like they just knew it because it was dripping from me. And there was no other conversation to have but that conversation 24/7.
Okay.
And so there was no veering me off track or reconsidering it or really even trying to. They were in total alignment with it. And I think they just see it as a coming home. I think everybody does. And it's, you know, we're already halfway through our next album and we're really going for the dance. We're going for the Head Full of Dreams, Tritonal style, right? We're going for a big one, and we're writing from a really great place. But I just wanted to reset the palette and reset the flow and really just slow down for a minute, breathe, back up, reflect, and then really choose consciously on our decisions and our path. And really make one for once instead of just, you know, constantly moving because this is hot, and just being a slave to that. In order to really create really good art, sometimes you need to like really back up and just hit pause on everything and really evaluate and ask yourselves things and really just have it out with yourself. And I think when you have it out with yourself, now you're clearer and you can really then approach things from just a more calm, collected headspace, man. Yeah,
I mean, I think that's so important, and at the same time, it's difficult, right? Because you got this machine that you're running. You're a CEO, and you got people. You know,
I know. But the crazy thing is COVID like paused all of it. So like, there's nothing to do right now. There's no tours we can do. Right. There's no, you know, it was the perfect time to literally stop and reflect. Like, and so I just honored that, and I just honored what that time was about, and did that thing, and came out of that thing with, you know, basically a couple albums written, and more importantly, a real sense of authenticity and purpose on where we're going and what we want to say and what kind of visuals we want and what kind of tours we want and what kind of things we want to do. It just really ignited all of the stuff. When you go all the way back down to the roots and you really shake the roots and make sure that you're coming from a solid place, everything from that point just seems to come into alignment so much faster.
What so you said you're already working on the next album. Tell me about how the making Reverence impacts the music you make after that.
Well, just like, for one, Reverence was a highly focused album, and I say that in the sense that its aim was to allow you to go deeper into meditation. It's a meditation album. So I'm able to compartmentalize that, which has a very specific purpose and needs to be laid out into a way in which where one can use that sound to go into that state. But, you know, our next album was written more from the standpoint of writing songs for entertainment and enjoyment's sake. And I think that making sure that we establish those two criteria are important, because they are important. Because when you're writing music from a purely listenable, enjoyable perspective, now the songwriting is everything. And it literally is, it is about the message, but it's equally about the song. And it's equally about, you know, the melodies and the chord structure and the arrangement and all that. And it's not that it's not like about that in meditative music. It's just that things tend to drone on and evolve at a much slower pace. So Reverence allowed Dave and I to hit the pause button and just take a break from constantly producing catchy dance pop, electro, trancey, EDM bangers, right? It allowed us to slow down, go back home to roots. And now it's so fun again, you know, to really approach songwriting, because we really have become better songwriters, and we work with amazing songwriters. The difference now is now we have a really focused message. And so whereas before we didn't dig into the lyrics as much, we really on the songwriting sessions have been going back and forth with the writers, really establishing like what are we actually talking about and what are we saying? Because so many times you can just go with a lyric because it works in a melody scheme and just kind of it's throwaway to you or whatever, and you don't really ask yourself, what are we saying deep enough? I don't think. And I think things are just thrown away all the time like that. And so again, that sounds like a subtle change in your sound, but when you're doing that consistently all the time, it really adds up into the sort of quality of the message over the course of an album. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so, and it also is, Reverence is also impacting us in the fact that for a dance pop or a, you know, more of a commercial progressive trance EDM record for Tritonal, we've also never approached an album like that was also a themed, cohesive idea, meaning that a lot of times we've made a compilation of singles and then other tracks to fill in the gaps that comprise an album, as opposed to stopping, coming up with a message and a theme, writing from that message and a theme, all the songs, and then making that message and a theme the part of the branding, the merchandise, the visual art, and all the things that you're going to do from that album is one thing. And that's different about this album because we've done that. And so that's another big maturity thing that you have to have. I mean, I guess some artists just come out so mature because whatever, you know, but we had to sort of like grow into that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does make sense. And I think it's interesting, dance music has traditionally been a singles business.
Yeah.
Right. It's all about what moves people on the dance floor. And everything you're saying really resonates with me, right? Like I've been going to raves since before they were called raves. And, and I think there's this interesting, dichotomy that, on the one hand, it's about getting fucked up and dancing and just having the time of your life. And on the other hand, there is a consciousness and a sense of community. And I think, for me, at least, it started with people just being there and being free with themselves. Right. And whether that was the drugs or the music or the combination or the, just all of the above. Right. That gives space for people to maybe explore more of who they are. Yeah. And that leads you down this other path. So to me, I think it's a really interesting way to kind of bring those things together.
Yeah.
And I think especially now in this moment where we're having conversations about mental health, we're understanding.
Yeah. Pierce is gone. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. So,
for sure.
And, I'm in the rooms and I've had sponsees die. I've had a few sponsees OD on heroin. That's why it's important for me to honor that part. And,
sure.
I don't operate out of the paradigm that drugs are bad. I just know that for me, some narcotics are so powerful for me personally that once I'm going on them, I don't seem to have the power to manage the decision to stay stopped. I need to be physically removed and then really have to work through all that processes of rearranging the, sort of neural. I think it changes the neural pathways and really the receptors and what's going on at a biochemical level and also a spiritual level. And and those two things are intertwined, and they're entangled too. And you know, that's why it's, you know, I just think that Dave and I, because I was a real bona fide rave kid and went to you know, underground parties when we had to call in with the hotline, you know what I mean? And like,
for sure, map points and all that shit.
I just think that I know what that life's like, and there's a lot of sad kids in it, man, and there's a lot of really depressed, hurting people that are looking for therapy through music and drugs. And I think if at those situations, I can provide a sound and a message that even at the subtlest levels begins to awaken them to a higher form of vibratory consciousness, that's awesome. Yeah. And I think that now that we've actually really begun to crystallize that whole message of who am I, what am I doing here, and what the fucking point, we can change. We can have some really, really cool experiences. We've got some really cool ideas about what we want to do at live shows. And that's going to be cool. That's going to be really cool, man.
Yeah. Talk about you and Dave for a minute. So, you know, you guys have had a very successful partnership, and, you know, not just in music, right? But you've had radio shows, record label, all kind of stuff. And, you know, I looked at, you know, partnerships are hard. It's hard to maintain. Teach me a little bit of the secrets of that partnership, and, you know, how do you make decisions together? What do you guys do when you disagree? All that stuff.
So I think our partnership works so well because we're so vastly different in our personalities.
Okay.
And that's because Dave, I'm triple type A, super outgoing and just reactive, you know what I mean? And so that's what I'm working on, is my reactivity, my emotional reactivity, and my just being able to pause more and come from a place of stillness. And Dave's just the other way. He just more thoughtful, listens more, less, but also doesn't have the like insane drive, right, that I do to constantly push. And so our personalities have embraced well. He's been able to help me in areas where I'm weak and vice versa. And I think that that's the magic, is just that we commingle well, and we've always had to continue to have, you know, difficult conversations, man. I mean, it's kind of like a marriage, and you got to constantly clean house. And, you know, I think that because we speak each other's musical language so harmoniously together, that we connect so deep on that level that we're able to just kind of figure the other things out, I think. And, and I, you know, I think that we just love making music so much the same. And so, you know, at some point, man, it'll run its course and that'll be that, but I don't know when that is or what that's going to look like. Like, I know that Dave and I would love it if we're able to have the opportunity to make music until we don't want to make music anymore. We'll see if that's the case. We're not all promised, you know what I'm saying? And that's what COVID taught us. You're not like, you're every one of us who's been able to do this at any capacity has been blessed, right? And I just think that the gratitude for that, and the gratitude, you know, you can gripe about Spotify not paying their royalty share, or the labels who've, you know, vampired the lifeblood out of the, you know, indie breaking new art, or whatever you want to complain about, because there's a million things to complain about. But the reality is that a lot of artists have been able to make substantial careers off of not doing that much work. I mean, we've worked really hard, but simultaneously, we don't dig holes every day. You know what I'm saying? Like, we get to do things that it's really fun to do.
Definitely.
So yeah, I don't know, man. I think that having gratitude is good. And Dave and I don't know, man. I guess we're just working through it still. Like, just like any people, I think you just have to be willing to love each other through the mistakes, because we both make them. You know what I mean?
That's the big one. Do you like divide up responsibilities? Like, this is Chad's lane, this is Dave's lane. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, we divide and conquer all the time. That's huge. A big part, like we switch the radio show every week. And I'll finish a mix off or a master off, and he'll still be on another section of their track. And we use iMessage to send each other clips, and we switch back in and out of the same project file, and it's all on Dropbox, and we have the exact same identical setups. So we bang, man, online. Like we bang it out. And we got good at that early on because we started our partnership basically on the internet, like way back, you know.
Is that right?
And so like we've always used the internet. And we've just gotten really good at that. And you know, for the first 5 or 6 years, we were in 2 chairs beside each other every day, you know, 6 days a week, 8-10 hours a day. So being in that close proximity and really working that hard, that long together, you're in the trenches together, you sort of learn your own little code language for like what you can do, what you're good at, what I'm good at, and how we can bang this out more efficiently. And we've really honed that in and figured that out.
Nice. You talked about, I mean, I think you guys have been incredibly prolific, right? You've released a ton of music.
I
think I read somewhere over 200 tracks and remixes.
Yeah.
What's the secret to that productivity?
Because you got to treat it like it's a job. The secret to productivity is you produce when you're sad, and you produce when you're mad, and you produce when you're lonely, and you produce when you're inspired, and you produce when you're uninspired, and you produce every day, because that's what you need to do in order to get better at it. And if you approach it like that, then you'll get out of your own way of always needing to feel inspired about something in order to get creative. Because getting creative is more of just about getting present, noodling around, and figuring out what you want to do and really digging in than it is about entering it through the mind. And I think that, you know, just always showing up. Dave and I just kept showing up together every day, man. And sobriety was a big part of that.
Yeah.
So being sober-minded and going to bed early and working out and eating healthy and banging out 200 records is you got to be there at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. You need to be there till 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. You need to put it in if you're really going to turn it out. I mean, and we did that. And I think we got used to that. And anytime you just put in enough hours, you just get good at what you're doing, man.
I love that. Love that answer.
And that's all there is really to it. If you paint every day, you're going to become a pretty damn good painter.
Right. Yeah. Nice. Well, teach us a little bit about meditation.
Okay. So I think what most people don't understand is that they should treat it more like going to the library or going to a workout than they should something that they do right before they go to sleep. Although there are meditations that are right before you go to sleep, and that's Nidra yoga. And that's a specific type of meditation, which is also wonderful at helping you go to sleep. But I think that sitting up straight with your spine erect with on a armless chair where you can have your your lower back not rest on the chair, but you can allow your sushumna or your main nervous channel, your cerebral cortex spine, your spinal column to be free, energetically free from touching anything and erect and straight. As that allows you to breathe deeper, that allows you to really settle in, that allows you to really concentrate better. I think having some sort of a mantra or a repetitious phrase that you repeat during the inhalation and the exhalation. I love using rising as I inhale and falling as I exhale, and really staying single pointed on just those 2 words. And literally, as you inhale, mentally say rising and then visualize it on a chalkboard or on a whiteboard. Spell it out in your mind. And as you exhale, really say falling and not try to control your breath, but really just watch your breath and stay and try to stay as razor sharp, single pointed concentration as you can on just that thing, and see how quickly the storm of thoughts will try to come in and grab you and pull you out and take you off on another on another journey that you're unconscious of, either that be a memory or an imagination or something you should have done or someone you want to talk to, whatever that is. And as soon as you remember that you were only going to, for X amount of minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, that you were only going to follow your breath and stay rising, falling. As soon as you remember that you've been kidnapped again, gently yet firmly bring yourself back to that rising and falling and start again. For the starting again is the meditation practice. That is the discipline. You shouldn't get down on yourself. There's no need for discouragement. The starting again, once you've fallen off, is the practice. That is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. And so every time you start over, it's an opportunity for you to see that, just like we do in life. When we stumble, when we collapse, when we fall short again, it's just an opportunity to come right back up and start again. The other thing that I would do is I would have your palms resting at, right at where your thighs meet your waist, turned up. And you can use your hands backwards like that in order to keep your spine from bending like this. You can use your hands to press your spine back up, and it sort of gives you some leverage right there, so you can really stay straight up. And the next thing is just be willing to set a timer and to sit there, irregardless of how uncomfortable or how much discomfort you may be experiencing, just to breathe through that and remind yourself that you're only trying to practice to be able to let go of the insistent, storm of thoughts, of thought forms. And what most people, they get frustrated with themselves and they can't do it. It's too hard. And really what that is their unwillingness to sit with the discomfort of the starting over again and again and again. And it's really crazy and eye-opening when you see how powerless you actually are when you're in an unconscious state to your thoughts, and how your thoughts trigger an emotion, and an emotion triggers a thought, and you're in this constant feedback loop, unaware that this feedback loop is always going on. And if you'll sit there, irregardless of how uncomfortable it is, for long enough, and keep doing the single pointed concentration long enough, there will come a moment where your thoughts will absolutely cease. They will slow way, way down. And a little bit of inner spaciousness will be created where you'll realize, oh, whoa, I'm not my mind. And you'll begin to experience yourself as this conscious awareness, this loving awareness, that's a cohesiveness that's emerging with sort of a consciousness that's beyond just your individualized consciousness, but still is you. It's not either or. It's at one with, or at home with the universe. You'll begin to experience yourself in this transcendent state of homeness or omness. And that cohesiveness is such a moment that it allows love and peace and unity to flow back through you, because immediately the fear of death and of annihilation and of being cut off and separate is remedied and healed, and it can begin to harmonize. And when that harmonization happens, you just feel okay. You're like, man, I was really caught up in how fucked up and shitty everything is, but it's actually just all right. You know what I'm saying? It's actually perfect.
No, I love that, man. And one of my favorite meditation practices, whenever I've been injured, which is frequently, I've done meditation on pain, right? And this idea that you bring, so much about pain management in our world, right, is about alleviating or getting further distant from the pain, right? Things to take your mind off it, or things to numb it. Go into it, right? And so I remember the first time, trying that and hearing that, you focus your attention right in the center of the pain, and you sit with that. And I remember that, and it took me a while to realize, right? But the point of that is that, sometimes shit's gonna hurt, and you got to just be okay with it. Like you said, you're gonna be okay even when you're in pain, right? And it's not so much that the pain goes away, but the
Yeah.
power that it has over you decreases.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, that's so powerful. I love that.
Love that too.
Well, thanks, man. Before I let you go, I got a quick lightning round that I want to take you through.
Okay.
What's your favorite city to travel to?
Tokyo.
Oh yeah, mine too. I love it there. Can't wait to get back. Who is your favorite DJ?
Above and Beyond.
What's the last great book you read or listened to?
The Yoga Sutras by Patanjali.
Good one. What movie do you think you've seen the most in your life?
Arachnophobia or Jaws or Rocky.
Okay.
I don't know. One of those three.
All right. Who's somebody you've learned a lot from that you haven't met?
Eckhart Tolle.
And last one, if I worked for you, what's something I would hear you say over and over?
Subek. It's all one in Sanskrit.
Nice. Man,
Subek.
thanks for talking with me, man. These are great stories, great lessons. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great, bro. Let me get back to painting, man.
Yeah, for sure. Do your thing.
Yeah, that was Tritonal on Rebel Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Thanks for celebrating our 6-year anniversary with us. If you have time, go back and listen to all of the last 6 years of our content. Love to know what you think. Hit us up on Twitter or Facebook. It's at Rebel Radio Net. And most importantly, come back next week for more Rebel Radio. Peace.